If you could be a person that's body was made with video games, what would be the top 10 favorite parts of your body? That's the question I ask myself now that we've come to the end of the year. Over the year of 2018, what were the favorite parts of my body, my mental experience that I experienced through video games? Some of which you experienced with me. Technically, you're part of my body too, and I'm part of yours. Our mental bodies, our minds merge through the medium of video games as we experience the games together, experience the good times, experience the bad, and made memories that form our decisions and form our identities that determine who we are and what we'll be going forward. In some ways, we're partly the same person, but also different. And now you have to consider the year is over. And the thing that people like to do at the end of the year is decide what were their favorite things, and maybe some kind of ordered list, and maybe they number them 1 to 10. It's a thing people do. Why do people do that? I mean, I would like to try to be positive about that and say that maybe people like to take the experiences that they enjoyed and give them to other people. To say, I liked this thing that is part of me now. I want to take this part of me and I want to shove it into you, and I hope you enjoy this part of me. And maybe that's what I'm doing right here. Maybe I want to shove myself into you. I could be cynical about it and say that maybe the reason people like to make these ordered lists is because they like to pretend that the things they did over the years and the things they enjoyed have some kind of meaning, and we all know it doesn't. We all know that the universe doesn't care about the top 10 games that you enjoyed, or even if you played any games at all, or even if you enjoyed anything. None of it really matters, but we like to pretend that it does. But I'm going to take the positive route on this and say that I want to take my top 10 favorite video game experiences of 2018. I want to take these experiences, I want to wrap them up into a little ball, and I want to give that ball to you. I want you to take that ball, and I want you to unwrap the ball. The metaphor's falling apart. I want you to know about the top 10 video game experiences. This is not going to be a very formal video, as you could probably tell at this point. It's also not really going to be about 2018 all that much, because I'm going to play fast and loose with these release dates. Some people find that there's value in saying these are the best games that came out in 2018, but what does that matter, really? Really what matters are what were the games that you enjoyed in 2018, no matter when they came out. So let's get started with number 10. So clearly, Panzer Dragoon Orta did not come out in 2018, but it loves you all the same. Panzer Dragoon Orta came out over a decade ago, over 15 years ago maybe, on the original Xbox, and it was the 4th game in the Panzer Dragoon series. A series that, if you owned a Saturn, you probably were familiar with, you probably enjoyed, because I played those first 2 games. They were 2 of my favorite games on the Saturn. I really liked them a lot. Not just the way they played, but the visuals and the sound did something that really piqued my imagination. Never played Saga, never played Orta. I always kind of wanted to, but never got around to it. But now I finally got around to playing Panzer Dragoon Orta, because something that did happen in the year of 2018 is that this game was released for the Xbox One through backwards compatibility. Oh yes, you could consider it a 2018 game because it was released in 2018. It was not available on the Xbox One in 2017. It is now available in 2018. And you can buy it on the digital store on Xbox Live, download it to your console, and you can play it in HD. It plays in almost 1080p on the normal Xbox One, and almost 4K on the Xbox One X. So technically this is an HD re-release, even though they didn't actually do anything to the graphics. It's all the system rendering at a higher resolution, and it looks beautiful. It's a testament to how strong the art design of Panzer Dragoon Orta is, that they could take this old game from, like I said, probably around 15 years ago, just put it on a modern console, and it looks fantastic. Really doesn't seem like an old game at all. You can kind of tell it's an older game, though, when you actually play it. It's kind of difficult. The checkpointing is not generous. Playing modern games definitely it does make things easier for you in terms of tutorializing and checkpointing. Panzer Dragoon Orta, a bit rougher on you. There is a lengthy tutorial that you could take that's on the main menu, and it's good that it's there because it will teach you things that the main game itself will not teach you. Important things. Things that you're going to need to know to survive and to excel in life in the world of Panzer Dragoon Orta. I really enjoyed playing this game. I had a lot of fun. And I think maybe one reason for that is, since I had played the first 2 games, that let me feel these sort of nostalgic warm and fuzzies, thinking back to those original 2 games. But at the same time, since I never played Orta, this was a completely new original game for me. So I got the best of both worlds. Best of both? No. Best of both. I was trying to think of a way to save Beth of Both Worlds, but I cannot think of a way to save that. Who would even Beth be? You got the best of both worlds, in that I was feeling the nostalgia, but also playing a game that I had never played before. And maybe, just maybe that's why this was my number 10 game of 2018. Let's head on to number 9.
Irashamase. Welcome. How many in your party, sir?
I want to talk to the owner.
May I ask what it's concerning?
Yeah, I'm here to kill Mr. Fukushima.
Certainly. We'll be delighted to serve you.
Okay, so Killer 7 also is not a 2018 game. I cannot pretend... No, I can pretend that it is, because this was released on Steam this year, and if you look on Steam, it does say it was released in 2018, so technically, this is a 2018 game. Okay, why do I have it on my list? Well, the original GameCube release of Killer 7 was one of my favorite games ever, and I always wanted this game to be ported to other platforms, just to increase the resolution of the graphics, to increase the fidelity of the controls. And they finally did, and it seemed impossible because Capcom never wanted anything to do with Killer 7. But in 2018, an HD port was released for the PC, and it is everything that I wanted it to be. They did the HD graphics thing, and they really didn't have to do a whole lot to the polygonal graphics because they already look so good. But they gave it proper widescreen support. They revamped the 2D elements, for the most part, to be in HD and to fit the widescreen, so they did do work. With Panzer Dragoon Orta, they didn't really do work for that, I don't think, but Killer 7, work was definitely put in. And the game looks fantastic in HD. We already knew that. I did that LP last year of Killer 7 in Dolphin, but now we have an official release that supports HD graphics. Looks great. In addition, they added mouse support, which is fantastic. I'm in the original version of the game, even though I love that game, the controls, not great for aiming. You get used to it. You get used to aiming with the analog stick, but it's overly sensitive. It's not pleasant to really aim with. And I was wondering if maybe that was deliberate to add challenge to the game, but it's not really the kind of challenge you want. The mouse controls make aiming a joy. So much easier, so much more fun to play, and it makes the game a whole lot easier, I cannot doubt that. But it's worth it, because it is just so much smoother to play. And speaking of smoother, another improvement was that the PC version of the game runs at 60 FPS. The original version only ran at 30. So we got the HD graphics, we got the 60 FPS, we got the mouse controls. But that's not all. In addition, they added the Japanese version of the game. You switch the language of the game to Japanese, and you get the Japanese voices from the Remnant Psyches, which were overly distorted in the US version. No, you have the original voices if you set it to Japanese. I had no idea that was going to be in the game. I just set it to Japanese language on a lark, see what it would be like, and it turned out that they had the entire Japanese version in there. So that was a bonus that I had never expected. The game ran great for me. Never had any problems. I played it all the way through and loved every second of it.
You're fucked.
But then again, I guess you would ask if I loved every second of it, and if this is one of my favorite games ever, why is it only number 9 on my list? And I guess the answer I would have to give for that is that playing this game again in 2018 after playing it so many times, it can't have the same effect on me that it had when I first played it over a decade ago. Back when I first played it, it would have absolutely have been my game of the year if I was doing a game of the year at that time, or if I was even doing a YouTube channel, which I wasn't. But playing it now, it just can't have that effect anymore. But it is still one of my favorite games, and I am overjoyed that a new best version of the game has somehow, impossibly, now been released in 2018. That's why Killer 7 is number 9. Oh, Tetris. What can you say about Tetris? Tetris is the timeless game. It's the game we all know. It's the game we've all played in some form. Some of us played it on the original Game Boy. We remember it from that. I originally played it on DOS. When I was really young, a relative brought it over and installed it on my family's PC, and it was addictive. I never really played a game that had been quite that addictive before. Some people remember like the Tetris DS version, because that was a great handheld version with great multiplayer. Of course, some of us remember the CDI version. Hey, you can't forget about that one. But we all have our own favorite versions of Tetris. Tetris Effect came out this year, and it is a fantastic version of Tetris. It feels so good. Not every Tetris game feels the same. No. Tetris Effect feels really good. It feels really smooth. And of course, you have the imagery and the sound that you're seeing created by Mizuguchi and his team, the creators of Rez, the creators of Lumines. Top tier when it comes to these sorts of visuals. Some people might say this game is just Tetris with a Winamp visualizer. To that I might say, yeah, it's just Tetris with a really good Winamp visualizer. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes that's just all you need. Because Tetris, again, it's the timeless game. And to me, well, you're watching this right now, you can probably tell I'm not very good at Tetris. When I play Tetris, it's not about making the Tetrises, it's not about getting all the points, because that's probably not going to happen. For me, Tetris is all about management. It's all about getting into a bad situation and trying to make it less bad, much like life. Because Tetris is a metaphor for life. With Tetris, it's very fair. More fair than just about every game. You start off with a blank well. The pieces come down. You figure out what you need to do with those pieces. And any mistakes that are made, any holes that are left in the well, it's all your fault. And you know it's your fault. And you can't be mad. You can't be frustrated, because you know the game's not screwing you over. You know that it was you who screwed you over. And it's just like a metaphor for life. You have to figure out the behaviors that you have, the decisions that you make, which led to this bad situation with all of these holes in your well. You have to correct your behavior. You have to make the right decisions to clear the lines, expose the holes, fill those holes, and clear your well. And then you can focus on building up some Tetrises. Or in the case of Tetris Effect, you can stop time to get more than 4 lines at once. Blasphemous, I know, but you can do it in Tetris Effect. And also in Tetris Effect, you can put on the virtual reality helmet to completely immerse yourself in the artwork. It's not necessary at all to actually play the game. It's just a cool bonus to have that cool artwork and imagery just all around you. You put on the helmet, you look around, it's in front of you, it's to the sides, it's all around, it's up and down. You're surrounded by Tetris and the beautiful artwork that is contained in Tetris Effect. It's the best looking, best sounding Tetris Effect. It's the only Tetris Effect that has ever been made, but it's the best looking and best sounding Tetris game that has ever been made. And considering Tetris is such a timeless game, that has to mean something. It's a joy to play, it's a joy to watch, it's a joy to listen to. That's why Tetris Effect is my number 8 game of the year.
That's it. Hammond's cabin. Let me guess. That's not Hammond inside. Go
takes everything, but there are no secrets. Where are the secrets?
The ones in the north will catch Hammond and squeeze the secrets from his head.
Hammond will tell us what the junk is for.
The junk is for us. All of it.
Mutant Year Zero. This came as a surprise to me. I'd not heard of it before it came out, and when I did hear of it, I thought, that name is stupid. But I saw screenshots. It looked like XCOM, and that piqued my curiosity. I tried it out, and it is really good. I liked it a lot. How does it play? It plays kind of like XCOM, but if you play the game like XCOM, you will die very fast, because Mutant Year Zero, it's about stealth. It's about sneaking around. It's about scouting out your environment, seeing where the enemies are, seeing how clustered they are together, deciding what's your best move. Do you attack the group head-on? Probably not, because that will be suicide. You have to decide, who do you pick off, and how can you pick anyone off? Do you see someone walking away from the group? Are any of these enemy units standing still, or do they have walking patterns? How far away do they go? If one guard walks away a certain amount of distance, is it far enough for you to just go over there, sneak up, and pick it off, and no one else will know? Because that's what you gotta do. You gotta be all ninja-like, assassinate the soldiers, the guards, dogs. Well, they're mutant dogs, not normal dogs, because that would be bad. Mutant dogs, Medbot robots. You have to pick them off, one by one, to shrink down the enemy group, and then eventually engage the main group. Because if you engage them at first, before picking anyone else off, you will die. And it will happen fast, and it will happen brutally. And that's the kind of game this is. It's also about story, and it's pretty good. I actually became pretty attached to the main two characters of the game, Borman and Dux, and that's probably because I really like their voice acting. When it comes to the story of the game, however, there's not that much of it, and the game kind of ends abruptly. It's kind of a shorter game than a proper XCOM. I'd like to see a sequel to this that's expanded, filled out, given more story and more cutscenes, because I enjoyed these characters, and I would like to see what else they're going to get up to. Mutant Year Zero was a very fun game for me. It was something that really scratched the XCOM itch, but also added its own unique flavor to it, giving me a different experience than I would get from XCOM. You see, this is not just off-brand XCOM. It's taking the basis of XCOM and then giving its own uniqueness to it, resulting in a completely different product than XCOM. And I would say that Mutant Year Zero is definitely worthwhile to play, and is absolutely one of my top 10 games of the year, specifically number 7. Oh, Astrobot, why are you so adorable? I love you, Astrobot, even though I know you're only virtual. Astrobot is a platformer, 3D platformer that came out for the PlayStation VR, and a lot of people were gushing over this. A lot of people were saying it's like Nintendo made a virtual reality game. And you can kind of see the comparisons there. It's a platformer. It's a cute, cartoonish mascot platformer, so Nintendo comparisons will be inevitable. But that's not really why people make the comparisons. The reason why people really make the comparisons is because Astrobot is so polished. Everything fits together perfectly in a way that seems effortless. And you know, when it seems effortless, that means the most effort was put inside. It's a joy to play. It just feels really good in a way that I had not known that a VR platformer could feel. It really does have that level of care and just craft that you might get out of a proper Mario game. But this is not a Mario game. This is a completely new IP. Astrobot is a robot who needs your help. You need to rescue the other robots and defeat the alien that put Astrobot and his friends in such a sorry state. You explore a variety of environments, including forests, deserts. No, not really a desert. More like a beach. Oceans. Trees. Treetops. There's a bunch of environments. Volcanoes. There's that. A bunch of bosses, which are all very big and very fearsome. This is a game that, on the one hand, it is an extremely polished platformer. On the other hand, it takes the fact that it is in virtual reality and makes that an essential component to its experience. Taking Astrobot out of VR would give you a much lesser game. It would be... I don't want to say that they shouldn't port it to non-VR. I think it would be a shame if you played it without VR, because it adds so much to it to just be in that world, to be with Astrobot. I love you, Astrobot. To be with him. He is there, he is real, and he is your friend. As you think about something like Pokemon, you think about Ash and his Pikachu, that's the relationship that you form. You and Astrobot. And that's why Astrobot is my number 6 game of the year.
Emily? Is this my dream? Or is it your dream? Redemption. Why are you here?
Astrobot might be virtual, but Swery is real. Swery is real, and I do love Swery. Well, I don't know Swery personally, I just follow him on social media, and I've played his games, so I shouldn't make assumptions, but I think I love Swery. Swery has made some... I was about to say, Swery has made some games that have had really mixed reviews. I'm thinking specifically of Deadly Premonition. A lot of people like that game. A lot of people hate that game. It's an extremely unpolished game that ends up being more than the sum of its parts. There was D4, which had a lot of promise, but there just wasn't enough there, and it was never finished. Then you look at his previous games, well, previous game that he directed, which was Spy Fiction, and that's a very proficient game in terms of how it plays, but doesn't really have that Swery charm in terms of the story and characters. Swery had some hard times. He left the company that he was with, Access Games, to form his own development house, White Owls, and people were saying, what is he going to be doing? Does he have the money to actually start making some games? He did a Kickstarter for The Good Life, but who knows how that's going to turn out, because it'll be a while before we really see something from that. But then Swery surprised us all, releasing The Missing. He and White Owls had been working on this game, being published by Arc System Works. So now this was our first opportunity to see what would Swery do when he was unleashed, when he was not working for anyone but himself, when he was going to make the type of game that he wanted to make. And he made a side-scrolling puzzle platformer, and that was surprising. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the style of gameplay. You could sort of look at The Missing and make a straight line coming from another world, or out of this world, depending on your country. Looking at that game, going to a game like Flashback, going to modern games like Limbo or Inside, like a straight line drawn through those games to The Missing in terms of how it plays, and I really enjoyed how it played. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but then you figure out how to maneuver JJ, how to maneuver objects in the world, how to use JJ's regeneration mechanic. And I thought that the regeneration mechanic was cool because, hey, I like characters like Wolverine and Deadpool who can regenerate. JJ's take on it, however, much more realistic, much more painful. The game makes you completely aware of how much pain JJ is in when she has to regenerate. Well, when she has to get injured to make progress, after which she can regenerate. But of course, it's not just the gameplay that people talk about when they talk about this game. They talk about the story, which addresses certain things that just most video games really don't address. And I don't really want to bring up the fact that Swery is Japanese, but a common reaction people have is, I can't believe a Japanese developer made a story like this. And I think that it kind of shows that Swery is thinking about things, thinking about people, thinking about stories that maybe most other mainstream developers just aren't really thinking about how to touch your emotions in a certain way, thinking about how to address the stories that some people might have to try to get you to relate to those stories. And I played The Missing. It did not take long. It is not a long game to play through. It's only a few hours. But by the time I got to the end, I feel really good for Swery's future. I feel really good in the types of games he's going to be making. I feel really good about how he made this game on what was surely a shoestring budget. And he produced one of my favorite games of the year, a game that played very proficiently, I thought. A game that I enjoyed playing because I do like puzzle platformers, but also a game with a very unique, touching story that showed that Swery still had the ability to make a story that could speak to you. You know, one question people have is, after Deadly Premonition, people would wonder, is that a fluke? Is it a fluke that Deadly Premonition had the charm that it had? Could he do something like that again? Could he, or was it just kind of an accident as Swery attempted to copy Twin Peaks? And seeing how well Swery manages the story, the tone, and the characters in The Missing gives me confidence that, yeah, he knows absolutely what he's doing, and he and his team can absolutely make a worthwhile game on a shoestring budget. So, The Missing, not only a good game, not only a good story, not only a unique story, but it is something that gives me a lot of hope for Swery's future games, including The Good Life and whatever might come after that. That's why The Missing is number 5 for me in 2018. Into the Breach. Now, this was something that had a visual appealing look for me, because I do like that pixel look. It was this sort of puzzle tactics game, and I thought that was pretty cool, but I had no idea just how much I would enjoy this. I remember the first night I played Into the Breach, and I started playing it something like maybe 9 or 10 at night, and then the hours went on, the night went on, and then I realized the sun was coming up. It was like 6 in the morning, and I was thinking, what? Wait, what? How long have I been playing this? And that was the first time in many years that something like that had happened to me. I mean, when I was younger, when I was a child, sometimes that would happen, but Into the Breach just hit something that had not been hit in me by a video game in quite a long time. It is extremely addicting. It is very fun. And much like Tetris that I mentioned earlier before, Into the Breach has this sense of fairness to it, in that you can see everything that's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. It's not a fast-paced game like Tetris. You don't have to react quickly, but the game does give you information on the screen that will tell you everything that is going to happen. You know how the enemies are going to attack. You know the order in which they will attack. You know what their attacks do, how much damage they will do, and the area that they will attack in. You know all these things, and now you have to manage what is going to happen. What's going to happen next? The enemies are telling you what they're going to do. How are you going to react with the resources and the units that you have? Into the Breach, you could consider it a tactics game, but because of how deliberate it is, and because of how much information they give you, maybe it would be more appropriate to call it a puzzle game. Because really, you could just spend all day, you could spend hours, just looking at a single screen, pondering what it is you're going to do. Like some kind of game of chess, except it's not chess, because you're controlling robots and the AI is controlling giant bugs, which makes it better than chess. That sounds like an awesome version of chess, but that version of chess does not exist. Into the Breach does exist. That's why that's on the top 10 list and chess is not. That's right, chess. Burned. Put in the boots to chess. Into the Breach replaces chess for the new age. Into the Breach is, again, it's very addictive. It's very fun. There's not that much in terms of story. There is some flavor text. The characters do have some things they say. But story really isn't what it's all about. It's all about challenge. It's all about figuring out what it is you need to do. Or even when you want to beat the game. You could beat the game early on after beating 2 islands. Or maybe you want to beat 3 islands. Or maybe you want to go all the way for 4 and then beat the game. It's up to you. You're in control. This game gives you control over everything, including when you actually complete it. And maybe that's one of the appeal. Maybe that's the appeal of Into the Breach. It's challenging, but you have control over everything, so how can it be unfair? How can it? Into the Breach has good music. I guess I'm not so flowery about that, but it's really good music to listen to as you are playing this game for hours and hours and hours on end. At home, on your PC, or maybe on the go, because I believe this was released on Switch. This does seem like it would be a very good portable game, in addition to playing it at home, so perfect for Switch. That's Into the Breach. It's my number 4 game of the year. Well, how could Nier Automata not be on this list? I know it's a 2017 game, but I played it in 2018, and it was released on other platforms in 2018, like the Xbox One, so technically it's a 2018 game. But as far as what my game of the year is, this kind of is literally a game of the year for me, because I started it at the beginning of the year, and I almost finished it, like in September, I think? Still have yet to get one ending, but I will eventually. So if I'm talking about what are my games of 2018, this is quite literally, for me, a game of calendar year 2018. Nier Automata is, I believe, the first Platinum game I've played, and it was a lot of fun. I've not played the original Nier, though I did watch an LP, so I did have some idea of the story going in. But Nier Automata plays very well, plays very smoothly. Once I got the hang of the controls, it was just a lot of fun to control 2B and 9S, and also A2 as well. I had a great time figuring out how to play the game, and then actually playing it once I figured out the controls and how you're actually supposed to do things. The game looks great, it sounds fantastic, and if I were to give a best soundtrack award, how can it go to anything but Nier Automata? Like, I would probably say once this generation is over, Nier Automata would probably be my favorite soundtrack of the generation. I can never get enough of listening to that music, and just the way it's used, the way it's entered into the game, the way it's put in certain places, the way the music dynamically changes. That, I think, is the thing that stands out to me when I'm thinking about Nier Automata. I think it also looks good, even though some people do say that the graphics are not cutting edge, but I do think that they get the job done, and I do like the designs of 2B and 9S. The story was, well, a bit convoluted, but really, I think I liked just the characters of 2B and 9S and their interactions more than the overall story of the game. I did like how much extra stuff was in the game, and I'm thinking about how many hours I spent doing all those side quests, and it never really felt to me like I was taking a long time with it. It was just fun for me to do all those side quests. Much like years ago, when I figured out how to do all the side quests in Deadly Premonition, just because I really wanted to. In Nier Automata, I just really wanted to do all these side quests. I felt it was fun to get them all done. For the most part. That one where you have to collect 95% enemy data, not so fun. But, for the most part, most of the side quests were fun. It's actually really hard for me to collect my thoughts about this game, and I think it's because of the amount of time that I took to play it. Like, if I had played this whole thing over the course of like a week, I think I would have much stronger thoughts and much stronger impressions. But considering that this game I stretched it out over the course of almost a year, and that just became part of my usual routine to play Nier Automata, then put it down, then play it again, put it down, play it again, put it down, over the course of months and months and months, I find it difficult to really collect my thoughts about what it is I think about the game just because I spread it over such a long period of time. I wonder if I shouldn't have done that. I wonder if I really should have just binged on it and spent like multi-hour sessions to just play the entire game over the course of like 2 weeks or something. I wonder if I would have had stronger impressions of it if I did that. Possibly. As it is, while I may have not as many words to say about Nier Automata as some of these other games, the way I feel about it is that it is a nuclear-powered black box within my chest, and I want to pull it out of my chest and give it to you. That's Nier Automata. That's why it's number 3 on my top 10 list. Oh, now this is virtual reality. Wipeout Omega Collection is actually the main reason I got a PSVR. When I heard that there was going to be a Wipeout VR game, that sounded to me like it would be something awesome. And you know what? It was. Wipeout Omega Collection, technically not a 2018 game, but what happened in 2018 was a patch was released adding VR support. And this is not a simple rush job of a patch. They did an amazing job with the virtual reality support for Wipeout. It is so fun to play. So fun that I would even put this over Astrobot as a fun VR experience. Wipeout Omega Collection, to me, is so far the pinnacle of VR games. And it's kind of funny to say that because, hey, it's just a racing game, right? Still, maybe that's one reason it is the pinnacle for me, because it kind of cuts out all of the elements of the PSVR that maybe doesn't work so well. Like, say, motion tracking of the controllers. Well, there's none of that in this game. You're just using the DualShock 4 to control your ship. Of course, your headset moves as you look around, and that works fine. But as far as the controls go, there's no slipperiness with motion controls. It's tight, normal controls. You're not standing up, you're not moving around. You're sitting down in a chair because that is what your body is doing in the game. You're sitting down in a cockpit. Maybe that's one reason it works so well, because it takes advantage of the immersion of VR. You're feeling like you're in this futuristic ship. But at the same time, it's also taking advantage of the fact that it's using the tried and true gamepad controls, and you're just sitting down in a chair instead of standing up and moving around. Maybe that's why this is so strong. I don't know. But I cannot deny just how good it feels to fly a ship around these tracks. The sense of speed. Just the feeling when, like, you're sideswiping another ship. Or the feeling when you jump off of a really large drop and your stomach drops a little bit when you see how far you're dropping. That's, you know it's the good stuff when that happens. When you're in virtual reality and the feeling of immersion is so much that when you fall off something, you kind of jerk because it feels like you're falling off of something. That's when you know you've got that immersion going on. And Wipeout Omega Collection does have that. You get used to it. But at first, there is some stomach dropping when you're playing this game. The game does have accessibility controls, so if maybe you get nauseous, you can affect how the game works in VR to try to tone that down, to minimize it. And that's what I used at first. But But once you get used to it, you want to turn all that off so you can experience the true VR experience, the true feeling of being in the cockpit. And maybe you get a little nauseous, but that's just you're in this futuristic ship going 100 miles an hour. So of course there's going to be some nausea going on. But I really do suggest that if you get used to it, that you turn all of the VR safety controls off so you can experience the full experience. Wipeout Omega Collection is a game that is so good that I was considering getting a new chair for this. Like, I was wondering, can I get like a chair that has like rumble in it and connect it to the PS4 so the chair can rumble like I'm in a cockpit? Can I buy like a pilot stick? Like a stick like the pilot uses in Wipeout, so I'm using the same kind of stick that the pilot is using in the game? Can I do that? Because it would increase the immersion. It's a game that I think about, do I want to play another racing game? And the answer is no, because if I want to play a racing game, I have Wipeout right here, and that's going to be better than anything else I'm going to play. It's that good that I don't really have a desire or a need to play another racing game in VR because I could spend that time just playing Wipeout. Why would I play something else if I'm going to race? I have the best racing game right here, or at least it is to me. Wipeout Omega Collection is so good in VR. It's so good. And I would really recommend that if you're curious about VR, if you have the chance to try it out, absolutely try out Wipeout Omega Collection. It is, for me, like I said, the pinnacle VR game that I have played so far, and I just don't get tired of it. I just don't get tired of it. And that is why it is number 2 on this list. But if I'm gushing so much about number 2, what could number 1 be? And what could that game offer?
Oh no! You're cut!
Don't leave me.
Bear up, son. I'll stay with you.
Tell Pete's mother I tried my best.
Aye.
To pull him back, to save him.
You tell her yourself. Brennan! Bring the surgeon's kit!
Return of the Obra Dinn was the return of Lucas Pope, and I liked Papers, Please. I did not play enough of it, but I liked what I did play. Return of the Obra Dinn, I did play enough of this. I played this all the way through, and I got the good ending. And man, I played it over the course of 2 nights, I think, and those were a fantastic 2 nights. Just seeing all these murders, getting all the facts about the crew members on the ship, putting them all together, just doing this detective work. I've mentioned before that I think I've mentioned it before, that a problem that a lot of detective games have is you don't actually do any detective work. You'll be playing a game that features a detective story, but no actual detective work. So if you think about something like, say, Deadly Premonition, love that game, you don't really investigate anything. The game just kind of takes you along for the ride. Or you think about a game like, say, Heavy Rain. Again, that's about a murder mystery. You're not really investigating anything, though. It's not that common that you'll get a game that actually makes you do investigation. And Return of the Obra Dinn does that, and it does it very well. And I don't think I realized that was an itch that I wanted to be scratched. But it was. And this game scratches it so well. You're on a ship that's drifted into port. 60 people were on this ship. They're all gone now. What happened to them? You have to figure that out with the help of your magic stopwatch, which is kind of an odd device, but what it lets you do is it lets you see the moment of death of all of the corpses that you come across. And you use that information that you see from these visions to figure out who everyone is, to figure out how they died, and to figure out who they were murdered by. Until at the end of the game, you will have identified the names and the fates of all 60 people. And in doing so, you uncover the full story about what happened on the Obra Dinn's fated expedition. It's hard to talk about this game without giving away spoilers, because most of the game is about uncovering a story. It's about figuring out what happened. It's about finding out who people are. So what can you say about the game that isn't really a spoiler? I guess what I would say is that I've never had so much fun cross-referencing information, because that's what most of the game is. After you've already seen all of the murder scenes, after you've gotten all of those cutscenes, all you're going to do is look through your book and try to cross-reference the information that you have on, I found this body right here, this body died in some way, who could this person be, what does this have to do with the other dead people who murdered this person, and maybe try to figure out the course of events from there. It's all about just cataloging information and cross-referencing it. And you wouldn't think that would be a compelling game mechanic. Just, I mean, from what I'm saying, that sounds boring, right? But it works so well, and maybe that's why this is number one on my list. Maybe it's because it takes such an odd idea for a game mechanic and makes it work so well, and makes it so fun. There's no combat in this game. There are no weapons. You don't fight anyone. And with many games, that's what's considered to be gameplay. That's not in this game. And there are no actual conversations you have with anyone, aside from the very beginning of the game. You don't talk to anyone. You don't actually even really interact with the environment around you. You can't really change anything. All you're doing is observing. You're watching. You're listening. You're writing down information, and you're figuring out what you can do with that information. And I don't think I've ever played a game that does that as well as Return of the Obra Dinn. So maybe I would say that this game is number one because it is best in class when it comes to sorting and collecting information and using that as a gameplay mechanic. Again, it sounds weird to say, but that's what it does. I also really like the look of the game. It's made to look like an old Macintosh adventure with its 1-bit graphics. And Lucas Pope did a really good job on that filter. I mean, you can just stop the character anywhere and just look at the environment, and it looks like a pixel drawing that someone made for an old Mac adventure game. You could just stop anywhere and do that, and you have a 1-bit 2D image that looks that good. Also, I realize, though, that probably a big reason for that is if this game had realistic graphics, it would be pretty gory. Some of these deaths are real bloody. There's like, someone might get shot, but they don't just get shot, their entire face comes off. And I was realizing that, oh, that might be why it has this filter, because if this filter wasn't here, man, this would be a disgusting game. Because some of these deaths, man, some of the people on the ship get it real hard. Get it real hard. But I think that might be why that filter is there. In any case, I really do enjoy the look of it. It is an extremely unique look. Not everyone enjoys it, because it is low resolution. It is a bit rough on the eyes. But I really liked how it looked. And I really liked just how it played and the story that unfolded. And it's the sort of thing where if you tell the story out in chronological order, it's really not a big deal. It's not a big thing. It's not like something that hasn't been in other video games. But just the way the story is told makes it more compelling. And this is something that I said about Killer 7 a long time ago, I think. That with Killer 7, I think the reason that I find that story interesting is not so much the details of the story, but the way the story is told in such a vague manner. That's what made it good to me. Same thing with Return of the Obra Dinn, I think. I think the thing that made the story interesting to me was the way it was told. The way you have to tease out every last bit of information from what you're given. And that's probably more interesting to me than a game that is just going to give you the story straight out. Even though this game was short, I completed it in, I believe, 8 hours. And like I said, I think it was over the course of 2 nights. Even though it was short, those 2 nights, for me, were the number one video gaming experience of 2018. And that's why Return of the Obra Dinn is number 1. Well, that's my top 10. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope that if any of them interest you, that you play them. Because like I said, my purpose here today is to take the good things that I experienced in 2018, pull it out of my chest like a black box, tap it against your black box, and then we both explode in the nuclear explosion of joy. So if you want to touch my black box, I'm holding it out now. I'm holding it out for you. If you want to take your black box and tap it against mine, you can do it. And we can share that experience together. But that's been my top 10 games of 2018. And I hope that you have a good new year.